we've just gone live. So welcome. Glad you can join us from around Australia. For those that are in lockdown, I empathise. I'll go into a bit of detail, but the three of us are in Victoria, and so we certainly know a lockdown or two or three or four. So we entirely empathise with those that are facing that challenge. I will introduce myself very briefly whilst people are joining us. My name is Jackie Stephan. I'm the Relationship Manager at the College of Law in Victoria. I've been with the college for almost 2 years. I have an insurance law background. I practiced in private practice before moving into an in-house claims management role for 10 years. So I've got quite a bit of an experience behind me, and we're here today to answer your questions on PLT. I have two fabulous alumni from the college and current students, and they're here to answer all your burning questions about PLT. I'll let them introduce themselves in more detail, but we have tonight with us Paula and Emma Berkeley.
Beautiful, thanks Jackie. So following on from that, I definitely don't have as much experience as Jackie just yet, but my name's Paula. I'm currently a senior consultant and I work at PwC. I kind of been in the tax division. I've got a commerce and law background from kind of Monash University, and I think basically from that background, I kind of always said I've wanted to do my PLT, be admitted, kind of have that qualification behind me. Just because you, I guess, do this doesn't mean you need to practice law, doesn't mean you necessarily have to be active within that kind of space, but a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis is very law intensive, and so I think that background has obviously given me a really good kind of space to work within using that background as well, then kind of going into my PLT. Besides that, kind of quite enjoy cooking. During lockdown, that's kind of been a novelty for me, just on the side kind of venture, and yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. Emma, over to you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Paula. Hi, everybody. My name is Emma Berkeley. I'm a PLT graduate of the College of Law, so I've completed all of my PLT components. I have since been admitted, so I'm now a practicing lawyer and I work for Patrick and Associates. In terms of my background, I completed a double degree in Arts and Law at Deakin University and went on to complete my PLT with the College of Law pretty much immediately. And following commencement or conclusion of, I applied for my admission and am now practicing, so a pretty swift version of events on my end.
Unmute. Thank you for that, ladies. I'm going to go through some brief slides which covers off sort of the detail of the course. And Emma and Paula will be able to add their commentaries based on their experience and their insights that they can share with you. What we'll do is, if we can ask you to leave your questions in the chat box, and we will get to that. I will certainly, we're aiming to leave at least 15-20 minutes towards the end, so we can cover off any questions. So feel free to drop a question in there and we'll get to that at the end. So I'm just going to share my slides. Bear with me while I get that up. And hopefully we can see that. Lovely. Okay. PLT at the College of Law. A few people have already submitted questions, so some of these questions I'll hope to answer in this presentation. So where you're at on the your progress, I guess, along this path, you're currently completing your studies, I imagine. So you're either doing a Bachelor of Laws or a JD. You then complete your PLT, just like Emma and Paula. You make your disclosure as a fit and proper person and then can be admitted to practice. The focus of the PLT, unlike university, is really to give you the practical skills so that you can leave very confident and capable to enter practice or whether you're going into a government department or any other role within the profession, that you're leaving us but heading in with a lot of skills and experience that you can then confidently tackle the work provided to you. So in this instance, Cormac was commenting on the experience of examining witnesses, etc., in a mock kind of courtroom setting. But you also learn to draft documents, legal documents, letters of advice, affidavits, etc., etc. So everything you need once you hit the ground running, once you graduate from the college and are admitted to practice. This was one of the questions that was asked, so I will certainly address it. When can you start? I should have added that PLT, or practical legal training, which amounts to your graduate diploma of legal practice, GDLP, is actually compulsory. So whether you do it with the college or if you're lucky enough to obtain a graduate placement at a law firm, and we are affiliated with numerous and partnered with numerous law firms to provide their graduates with their PLT, but either way it is compulsory. You can start if you've either finished your studies or alternatively have completed your Priestley 11 and have only 2 electives remaining. Then if you're in this second category where you've got your 2 electives remaining, you need to apply to the regulator, just a letter, and complete the paperwork asking for a early commencement. Provided you have undertaken the work, there really isn't an issue as far as I'm aware of starting that, undertaking a PLT and complying with the early commencement rules. So as long as you've done your Priestley 11, you should be fine to start with only your 2 electives left. So the PLT with the college. There are 3 components to our PLT. The first is coursework, and we will sort of go into that in the most amount of detail because that is really a larger component of the program. We will also touch on the work experience, and then the third component, which is quite a bit smaller than the other 2, is the continuing professional education. Time really only allows for us to touch on sort of the part 2 and part 3 fairly lightly, but towards the end of the presentation, there'll be a QR code for the handbook. So you can scan that with your phone and connect directly to the handbook. So the coursework, it's made up of 5 compulsory subjects and 2 electives. Whilst it might sound like your subjects at law school, i.e., civil lit, admin law, banking and finance, I'm sure Emma and Paula will confirm this. It's very different to learning it at university. It's entirely different because we're approaching it from the practical perspective. So what we're really wanting to do is give you the skills to apply the tools and the knowledge you've learnt at uni. So the theory, the knowledge that you've gained, it's all about really now teaching you how to apply it. Some people kind of, give the analogy of being a driving instructor. You've done your L's, you've done your hours on your learners, and this is really about now making sure you're doing all the work to get to the end and become a big P's as a driver. But so the 5 compulsories, civil lit, commercial and corporate, ethics and professional responsibility, although there are aspects of ethics in most of the subjects, lawyers' skills and property practice. I will explain the makeup of the timetable and how it looks, but the first week is the only week that we require you to be available from 9 to 5 for the Monday to Friday. After that, you will see that we've got a timetable, but you can then study around work, around family commitments, other obligations you might have. So you don't have to be available from 9 to 5 other than that first week. So if you are working, you will need to take that first week off so that you can attend, whether it's virtually but live with lecturers, or alternatively face-to-face, where restrictions allow and permit. So it's just that week that you need to be available. The course itself goes for 15 weeks full-time and 30 weeks part-time. You can move, there is a cut-off date to move between the programs, but say if you start full-time and realise this is just too much of a commitment, and you can't juggle that with work, you can move to part-time and vice versa. There are 2 options. Just as I said, there's the online one, which is fully online. You still attend that first week, but it's via Zoom and interactive workshops. It's all live. You will have a lecturer and they will take you through the program, that coursework for the week. If you were able to, depending on restrictions in each state, the other option is to attend that week on site, and then the rest of the coursework is online. These are some of our fabulous lecturers and mentoring staff. We are the largest provider of PLT in Australia, so we probably couldn't put on enough slides all of our amazing staff that are our lecturers, but certainly some of our feedback, and a lot of our feedback from our students is all about the generosity and kindness and approachability of our lecturers. They're very much here to support you and to ensure you succeed. So they're all about making sure that you are confident and capable once you leave us. And so they're really wanting to get you to the end and make sure that we can do that with all the support and assistance that you require. Before I throw to Paula and Emma to discuss their sort of experience of the coursework, I just wanted to show you, this is a example of our Canvas, the program that we use. In this instance, this is the tasks for Civil Lit. I practiced in Civil Lit, so I know this is reflective of what practice looks like. So you will be asked to assess the merits of a case. You will then draft a letter of advice, and then activity 3 is you'll draft a statement of claim. That is very much reflective of practice. So a partner might come into your office and say, we've got a new client, and you're given the work and have to assess the merits of the claim. So this very much mirrors the real work you will be doing, especially if you're working in Civil Lit. When you submit your tasks, this is a letter of advice. You will receive commentary, and you can see on the side there, it's a little bit unclear, a bit faded, but you can see the commentary there from one of our lecturers, commenting on and giving feedback in relation to the student's letter of advice. If you're not happy with your letter of advice and the feedback, you can have another go. This isn't, we're not so focused on marks, unlike uni. This is more about, again, building up your skill set and your knowledge. So it's ensuring that you're capable and confident as opposed to getting a particular mark. Before I go to the work experience component, I wanted to invite Paula and Emma to share, I guess, their experience of the coursework, how they approached it, and in what sort of format and what electives they chose.
You're going to test me today, because it's been probably a little bit of a while of what actual electives I chose. But so if I reflect on my time, I probably was a year into kind of full-time work, and definitely after uni, I'm sure you all can appreciate just how full on a law degree can be. So I just took my time very much settling into my full-time job, and then basically decided, no, this is something I really want to do. And obviously, you know, you've got the option of basically doing full-time or part-time. So I basically decided to do kind of the part-time course, which really kind of sat well with me in terms of my kind of out of work obligations, work obligations, especially kind of, you know, depending on the time of year and also busy season. So that really worked really well for me. I found the lecturers were really accommodating in the sense of typically you'd find at uni, you know, if there's a due date, there's a due date. In the real world, I like to think that things need to be a bit more flexible, just because obviously people have a variety of different circumstances, and the lecturers are really accommodating for that. So, you know, if you've got a busy week at work, or you know, you haven't had an opportunity to look at something, they are very open to work with you, essentially, to understand what your circumstances are and what possible timeframes you essentially need with that. In terms of the kind of first week that we kind of did very much kind of the lawyer skills and a lot of kind of interactions, that was the first week, I think, very much that lockdown kind of started to happen, or that it was very much decided that it was all going to be online. It still was a great experience to do it online, and it meant that you were interacting with a number of different students from different backgrounds. You're all in the same boat. I think we all forget we're all very competitive in the sense of what we're wanting to achieve, and we want to be the best, but we're all in the same boat in terms of how we're learning and what we're trying to get out of it. So I think that was really great to be able to ask questions, feed off people's experiences and kind of the way that they looked at something. And so again, like I said, that was a really great week to kind of interact with individuals, and I guess take that on board, and then do a lot of kind of the extra components and units separately. So from memory, I did administrative law. I kind of really enjoyed that at uni, so I took that on board and thought that would be nice and cruisy. And then the other one, because I guess I have a tax background, I kind of thought I want to do something a little bit different if I ever was to decide to move into another area of law that I, you know, I'm not practicing at the moment. So that was wills and estates. I think I'll need one kind of eventually later on in life. So kind of thought that might be a little bit helpful. Again, in the sense of kind of going through, there's a lot of stuff online which you can access and basically read through at your own leisure, specific to that area of law. I think at the same time as well that you would have obviously those opportunities, and what's really reflective of how the College of Law does things is that we're right at the start of our journey in terms of practicing all these things. When you start at your first day of work, you wouldn't be expected to know everything. It's all about practice and actually applying what you've learned in a real life context. So that's the same thing that applies in the College of Law, that if you don't get something quite right the first time, there's people there to help you essentially, and then you get another chance to actually satisfy that kind of requirement. And then pretty much what was awesome is that, well, I guess there's assessments at each of them that you've got to study for. It was really nice to see that almost everything that we covered, it wasn't just going to be specific things that would be asked. It was a collective item. So you could really reflect on what you learned, really kind of feel like you did that unit justice, and then kind of go on in that respect. So I'd probably say that was my in-practice component. I'm sure you'll speak about the work experience next, Jackie. So I'll pass over to you, Emma.
Beautiful. Thank you, Paula. So probably adding to that, and I apologise everyone if I repeat anything that Paula's discussed, but I commenced my PLT whilst I was a law graduate, so I was working full-time. As Jackie mentioned, I took the first week off of my work so that I could attend the face-to-face component. Obviously that was online due to COVID-19 lockdown. However, it was still really valuable. I was provided with the opportunity to meet my key lecturer and also fellow students. That was quite important moving forward, as my lecturer was a point of contact, and I was also able to, I suppose, meet people that I could work with in a group setting in the future throughout my coursework. In terms of how I proceeded to approach my coursework, as Jackie mentioned, it's very flexible. I worked full-time, so I was able to manage my coursework components relatively seamlessly. I could complete the coursework components outside of work hours on weekends. With regard to assessments and due dates, fortunately, I was able to at times seek an extension where required, where my work commitments unfortunately didn't allow me to hit the deadlines as I would have liked to. In terms of the electives that I chose, I decided to complete the Employment and Industrial Law Practice elective and also the Planning and Environmental Law Practice elective. Both of those really attracted my interest and was a substantial reason why I chose to complete my PLT with the College of Law. It was something that I was interested in and also something that was extremely practical with regard to my employment. Broadly speaking, in terms of why I chose the College of Law, the fact that I could complete my coursework online was a major contributing factor. I could really manage my work and my coursework at the same time. I was able to speak with my lecturer if I had any concerns or queries. And of course, there's that flexibility with regard to deadlines, which I found to be of comfort. The second was, again, with regard to the electives that were on offer. They're of direct interest, very practical, and often things that you may not have studied whilst at university. So for me, planning and environmental law practice was not something that was delved into deeply during my university degree. During that elective coursework, I was able to look at certificates of title in detail, really understand how they work, how to apply them and so forth. The third key reason why I chose the College of Law was the fact that you are able to meet lecturers and fellow students. Assessments largely take place via a discussion. You're posed questions and you respond to them. The assessors or at least in my circumstance, they were barristers, they were ex-lawyers, current lawyers. They really had foundational practical knowledge and were really understanding of your position, your desire to do well and wanted you to do well. So it was a constructive discussion about what you had learnt, maybe some things that you could improve upon. And for me, that was a really valuable experience. So they're probably my key takeaways of my College of Law experience.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. One or two of the things I thought about listening to Paula and Emma. Paula commented about the materials. So you do receive practice papers. They are invaluable. They have all the information that you need for the coursework, and they're included as part of your fees. And the other aspect is the electives. You don't have to have studied them at uni. They can be either something you're interested in, something you didn't take at uni and would like some exposure in that area, maybe to rule it out or decide whether you'd like to head in that direction in your career. So they're quite a good opportunity to do something different if you haven't had that experience before, just sort of like Emma said, or to go perhaps a bit deeper than what you've done at uni, but from a very much a different approach, a practical approach. Thank you, ladies. So I'm going to get onto the second component of the PLT course, and that's the work experience. Due to COVID, we had to introduce a third option, which is the 0 days. So we've called that the in-practice component. But these are 3 options that you have. You can choose whichever option really suits your needs. And because of that, that offers a lot of flexibility in relation to what works best for you. And it really depends on what experience you've got, what work experience you've been able to undertake prior to starting PLT and what you'll be able to do during your PLT. So the IPC, which is 0 days, is an 8-week course. You'll be paired up with the mentor. You'll have 2 sessions with the mentor. You'll go through some scenarios that reflect things you might experience in practice, in real life, and you have to address those scenarios. They will have ethical aspects to it that you'll need to consider. And then you'll meet with your mentor and discuss with them how you approached it and what their advice would be in those situations. The second option in there in the middle, the 15 days, that is, or 15 days, except for WA, it's 25 days. That's 15 days work experience. You do that during your PLT. You can either do it after your coursework or during your coursework. But if you take this option, you will have to do a 6-week program called the Clinical Experience Module. Again, a short course. There is a fee for that and also for the IPC. But the beauty of those courses are the shorter days in which you are required to do your work experience. The third option, the 75 days, this is often the option taken by people who are currently working in a legal environment. So it's very easy for them to meet the 75 days. The good news is you can do the bulk of that prior to starting your PLT, and you can do that in the 2 years leading up to commencement of your PLT, so that you can go to the website, you can download, there's forms in relation to signing off your work experience, anything that you've accrued prior to starting your PLT, but it can only be done in the 2 years leading up to your PLT. So anything done before that cannot be considered. And again, the forms are on our website in relation to having your work experience completed and signed off. My advice would be to get it signed off with your supervisor whilst you're doing the work experience. It's very difficult to go back retrospectively, try and find a supervisor. They may have moved on or moved within the business or organisation. It's a lot harder to go back and find them then. Now, the third component is the Certificate of Legal Tech and Business Skills. It's what we call part of the Continuing Professional Education, the CPE. So that's the third component. This is new, as in, sorry, it's not new. We've always had to do the CPE. It's just that we've revamped it and really made it into much more of a business and law tech focus, noting that, I guess, due to COVID, the influx and innovation in the law tech space is certainly perhaps sort of proceeding at a furious pace. And has certainly been sped up due to, various restrictions due to COVID. So this gives you the business skills, the branding skills, what's considered the soft skills. To be honest, sometimes they're the most important skills in being able to meet, discuss, obtain instructions from obtain instructions from a client. And they're often the most important skills, honestly. Your ability to communicate is integral to you doing your role. So yes, so lots of law tech stuff, commercial mindset, financial information, networking and branding, and then the sort of foundational techie stuff, AI, data in the cloud. As I said, new for the college to turn it into more of a law tech and business skills. But that's a great certificate to have as well. You can put on your CV. These are the fees. As I said, there is an additional fee for IPC and the clinical experience module. Fee help is available, HEX, whichever way you want, whatever you call it. So all of the programs can be put on your HEX, assuming you have not reached your limit. There is payment plans available if you have reached your limit and so need some further assistance. We haven't increased our fees in the last 12 months due to recognition of financial difficulty that many people have experienced due to COVID. So I just wanted to note that we are very proud that we haven't increased our fees over that period. I'm just going to touch on a few, I guess, what we consider the really critical points in relation to why we feel, studying at the College of Law is of great benefit, and our real key selling points so that you can compare us, I guess, to other providers. You can learn your way. It's entirely online. depending upon which option you choose, but the course it's fully online or a combination of both online and on-site learning. So great flexibility. It is very convenient. I suppose Emma and Paula already spoke about. There are more than 90 intakes a year. I think there's about 30 alone in Victoria, full-time and part-time options. There's normally an intake almost every month in Victoria. So, and we offer 20 locations, both in most capital cities and also in regional areas. So that's hopefully locations very convenient for you in the event that you wish to come and attend face-to-face. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter where we're located, does it, nowadays? And the beauty of studying full-time or part-time. So you can meet your commitments for work or for family as well. We do have career support. So we have a fantastic careers professional, Susan Pincus, who I work very closely with. She has one-on-one consultations with our PLT students and our alumni. She can provide assistance in relation to all aspects of careers, such as interviews, applications, CVs, suggestions on where to look for a job, or often if you want to move into a different area, different aspects like that. We also, Susan holds monthly webinars on all things to do with careers. They're free, they're fantastic events. She has amazing panelists, and we often include current practicing lawyers, or they're often HR people from various law firms and departments. So definitely watch our events page on our website. You can subscribe to the events, and they're all free, the webinars. And if you can't attend live, then you'll receive the recording afterwards. But a great way to build your network is to connect with the panelists on LinkedIn, ask them a question, or thank them for answering your questions during this session. So yeah, definitely I would recommend connecting with us on LinkedIn. Again, it's a preferred provider to 16 of the top 20 international law firms. We take their graduates and teach them their PLT. The timing's different because they spread it out over a longer period rather than the 15 weeks full time. But yeah, so we're affiliated with numerous law firms. You learn by doing. It's all about the practice of law. Long essays are now behind you, which is fantastic. No longer having to regurgitate lots of case law and things like that. So it is all about the practical learning and the practical skills in our course. And local, as I think Emma said, all of our lecturers are either barristers, current lawyers, former lawyers. Some have run their practice, some are experts in and have their own business in negotiation, mediations, the full spectrum. So, and you can connect with them on LinkedIn, follow what they're doing, and again, build up your network. This is the link to the handbook. So that was an easy resource for you to, an easy way, just click on the QR code. And that will have all the information in relation to the coursework, work experience, intake dates, fees, and also you can book in an appointment with our student services and have a one-on-one, especially if you've got any more specific individualized questions in relation to admission or your ability to start your PLT, things like that. So I'll leave this up for a little bit, but I will throw to Paula and Emma to cover off how they did their work experience and anything else we sort of want to touch on. And I'll quickly try and look at the questions, and then, or you ladies might have had a quick look already, so you can, maybe we can start hitting the questions.
I'll go first. I think what's kind of valuable or invaluable in the sense is that Emma and I have had different experiences in terms of work experience. So I'm still currently a student, and just in the nature of my business, I very much work on a variety of different clients. And while I do have supervisors who basically have their practicing legal certificate, it's often been quite difficult just to do that within my business and within the kind of division that I've been in. So I've recently decided to do the IPC kind of component, which is the 8-week kind of program, and basically that kind of completes and ticks off my kind of work experience component. So I've probably started that, I like to think, 2 weeks ago, so very fresh, very new. In saying that, though, it's very much a kind of the same approach in terms of how I did my core electives and core units. I'm interacting with basically the lecturers, the various students as well, to basically complete all the various components. So the first kind of week we did basically a negotiation. It's something that you would have done previously. It's something that I'm now applying in practice, writing about it. I'm getting to use the skills that I have from my current workplace in terms of collating things, having that kind of commercial aspect. And so pretty much if you're not in a position to basically have work experience, this is probably the next best thing in terms of having those resources and those individuals kind of there to support you in that journey. So again, I couldn't recommend it enough if you are kind of concerned about that work experience component. Even probably it's a blessing in disguise that COVID happened so I could do it. But in saying that, there's always ways around in terms of if you're wanting to complete this, and a bit concerned about kind of getting some sort of arrangement in place. I'll pass over to Emma.
Beautiful. So as Paula's mentioned, my experience was very different. I completed my work experience component concurrently whilst completing my study and working. So I completed a 75-day component. For me, that was really, really beneficial. I was able to complete my studies at the College of Law, which were very practical, whilst essentially implementing what I was learning at the same time in a really practical way. So for me, that was of real benefit. In terms of sourcing your work experience, I mean, the college are definitely there to assist you, help you navigate that process, and there are various options available, as Paul has touched on. Probably adding to that in terms of how I kept track of my work experiences, various requirements that you will be aware of once you go down that path. I was required to complete a journal and also a time entry form for my work experience, especially because I was working remotely at the time, again, due to the benefits of COVID-19. And completing that as I went was really important, as has been mentioned. To do that retrospectively would be quite tricky. So to do it at the time was very important. I would probably add that I was very lucky in the sense that I was really supported by my workplace. So I had a wonderful supervisor who was always there if I needed any help or had any questions. And of course, they were able to work with me as I fulfilled the requirements of my work experience.
Thank you, ladies. We've got a few questions, so I will answer them as quickly as I can. Is it possible, one of the, Christina's asked, is it possible to work full-time and study full-time? What is the weekly time commitment for full-time study? I will throw to these ladies and so they can explain what they think, but I can tell you that we do have quite a few students who take it on full-time and work full-time. It is entirely your option whether or not you want, I guess, a life outside of work, and PLT is a consideration, but it's also how much pressure you want to put on yourself and also how much you want to get out of the course. I feel that you really want to commit yourself to getting as much as you can out of it. And I'm just not sure that you could do that working full-time and studying full-time. Yeah, it would be, for me, I think I would struggle, but let's see what the ladies think. What do you think?
So I basically agree with everything you've just said, Jackie. I think in anything, right, whether it's uni, work, things like that, you've kind of got to separate each component of your life so you can actually dedicate a good period of time to it. I think again, it's obviously subject to everyone's circumstances, but work will always be there. You've got a life of work in front of you, obviously subject to everyone's kind of circumstances and experiences. I would almost say enjoy the kind of journey of it. Like, I think part-time was a really great thing, that I had something to myself. I wasn't switched on and working all the time. I think that's very easy to do as a kind of graduate, and especially kind of in those early years, you're trying to prove yourself, you're trying to show that you're kind of take on stuff, you want to kind of work and kind of work on big things. So definitely, I think this kind of allowed me to have a bit more of a balance and essentially go, no, this is something that I'm doing. I'm continuing to study, develop myself, and work on my skill set. So I would almost say, I would encourage you to take that time and really kind of appreciate it. But again, like I said, everyone's different. Everyone's wired differently in that respect. If you can do it all at once, go for it. My fingers are crossed for you.
I'd probably just add to that, it is a very good question. When I was going through the process of applying, it was something that I ummed and ahed about. I wasn't sure what was best. In the end, I decided to do it part-time, and I'm very fortunate and happy with my decision that I chose to do it that way. It does largely depend on how much you want to throw yourself into the course. For me, I completed all components. I'd say 110%. I read all of the materials, which are very extensive and really resourceful. I prepared for assessments. I really took as much out of it as I could, as I would encourage you to. And in that regard, I believe that part-time is preferable in that sense, because there is quite a bit of work to do. There are a number of deadlines to meet in terms of assessments. There are oral assessments as well that you'll need to prepare for. So it is a personal choice and something that you can consider when you're applying. And as Jackie mentioned, you are able to change in the event that you take it on full time, think, oh, it's a bit too much, and then opt to do it part time.
Is it fair to say, do you think that it's about part time would be around 10 hours a week? Or, I mean, it does depend how quickly you can get through the work. So it is very subjective. And so I'm often loath to give set hours, because what might take you 2 hours might take me 4. So, but like, as a rough estimate, do you think on average, what could you say for the part-time course, do you think, from your experience?
I think that would be a safe bet. To put onto it 10 hours. I think what I've slowly started to realize is I've got to almost think about it as like a piece of work. So very much in my job, I might be allocated task, and I might be saying, okay, I need to do this in 2 hours. That's basically kind of the cost to it, things like that. And so for me, being able to do that, knowing that I've got these time constraints or possibly other commitments that I've got to do during the day, it allows me to be really efficient with my time and not to kind of waste it. Particularly, I think, kind of learnings from obviously uni and kind of thinking, oh, well, I've got all this time to do an assessment, or all this time to do this reading. I'm going to take my time. Whereas I think if you are very efficient, it's not going to be burdensome on you at all in terms of kind of a part-time role.
So I think we normally say is like roughly 10 to 15 hours a week part-time, so 20 plus hours a week full-time, to answer that question. Someone's asked a 3/4 load. Not really. I think it's full-time or part-time. Some people do take a bit longer because they have something else come up in their life, and so they can sort of put things on hold if they need to. But technically, it's really either full-time or part-time. We don't sort of really have a 3/4 time. But again, if you perhaps started full-time and needed to move into the part-time course, you could do that. There is no fee for the Legal Tech and Business Skills course. It is a compulsory component of the PLT program. But no, Antoinette, there is no additional fee for that. So there's some questions about work experience. The IPC, it's the question about the IPC and whether we'll be able to continue to offer it is actually not a question that's that sort of for the college as such, it's up to the regulator and what they feel, whether they'll agree to extending it. So with our discussions with the regulators, I think that they're very much realistic of the fact that we need to continue offering a fully online program with the option of the IPC for the work experience, especially now that various other states have gone back into lockdown. So I think that whilst there are no firm, commitments as such, I would very much anticipate for those that are sort of asking, you want to start later in the year and like to still have the IPC as an option. I think that it's fairly safe to say that whilst COVID is around and an issue, I think that we'll be able to, with the approval of the regulator, offer the IPC. We would certainly want to. So it's not a question that we would like to not offer it. It's more of a question of just the regulator approving it. That's perhaps the traditional approach of PLT, which was that you were to do your work experience and apply the knowledge you learnt in the coursework. Pre-COVID, that seemed completely fine. Post-COVID, that's much more difficult to do due to lockdown. So that, just to give you, I guess, some background on that. What else am I getting asked here? You start your IPC after you finish the coursework. In regards to the work experience component, are we allowed to undertake some days while we are doing our PLT? Yes, absolutely. It is envisaged that you're either doing your work experience during your PLT, like the coursework, or it's doing it when you've finished. So yeah, it just depends on, Emma was working, so she did during her coursework, and then Paula's started her IPC after the coursework. No worries. How do you approach seeking work experience? So the work experience, we don't place you, but we do have a jobs board. We do have, you do have access there and information in relation to a lot of organisations that will take on PLT students. There are a range of, charitable CLCs, non-for-profit organisations that do rely on PLT students to come in and do an internship or do a rotation, however they call it. But there are certainly organisations that are set up for that in the various states. So it tends to not be a problem. I guess the only challenge is of COVID. And so then you can got the IPC option. Some you can do it remotely. So like Emma was saying, she was working remotely at the time because we're in lockdown, and that certainly does meet the requirements for supervision. It's not the supervision aspect, it's provided that the work is still legal in nature. So it can't be, say, doing purely admin work. It does require some legal aspect to it, like an internship at or volunteering at a community legal centre. It could be in relation to your 60 days you can accrue before you start your PLT. It could be your placement at uni in one of your subjects. I know a lot of unis do placements at community legal centres, legal aid, things like that. You can do it by working with the barrister, and in various government departments in their legal teams, etc. I hope that's answered a few questions. So let me just go. Is there, they've asked about a pass-fail. The regulator actually need us to look at whether you're competent or not. If you do the work and you are considered competent, great, that's fine. If you do the work and you're considered not competent, then you're invited to either look at some more things. The lecturers will give you direction on what you need to look at, what you need to further consider, some topics you perhaps need to go back. I mean, if you haven't done the work, it's going to be difficult having that conversation with your lecturer and be asked the questions if you just have not done the work. So if you haven't done the reading, someone did ask about whether it's a textbook. Ladies, would you call it a textbook, or how would you describe the papers?
They're basically like PDFs that you can very easily access. You can download, you can highlight, you can add notes to. Yeah, they're just really accessible. You don't have to pay for anything further, and just pretty much very accessible online. So they're not hundreds of pages long, if that's what you're kind of asking in terms of that question. They're very digestible. I think the fact that they're online, you know, there's many of times where I'm trying to finish something late at night, and so I'd be control find in terms of my trying to find the answer, trying to find what particularly I'm looking for in that respect. So that's quite helpful.
Probably just add to that, I got a printed version sent to me via the College of Law, again when in lockdown, and for me that was really valuable. I still have it, I still refer to it. It is a really good resource, although it may be quite lengthy at the time. I mean, the assessment task can be quite short, but the materials that you need to read are quite long. It's really valuable and something that, again, I still refer to. It's a great resource.
So it's not learning something that you're not going to actually use or apply. So it's actually reading and learning something that is useful for something that you're going to do down the track. IPC is offered online, and in fact, I mean, in Victoria, our program's still fully online, and in most states. So it all sort of changes because, you know, Sydney at the moment is in lockdown, so they're back to fully online. And so absolutely, we are including that first week. So currently there is no face-to-face. I don't know if even Perth, I don't think Perth have offered it either. So certainly at the moment it is all online. There is no face-to-face at present. Again, that sort of line in the sand keeps moving because of all the recent lockdowns, but we were aiming for October, November, and we were doing some test courses in July, but and offering some face-to-face just to see what students wanted, whether we had interest in students coming back face-to-face or would prefer for that week to be online. And the overwhelming view at this stage is that students still want it face-to-face. So, still want it online. So that part, that skills week, absolutely will be offered going forward online, and you know, as long as COVID's around, there really is no choice. Yeah, we have to. What else? Anything else, ladies? Can you see has the college? There's a question about work experience compliance in the finance industry. For specific questions in relation to work experience and whether it meets the criteria, again, the criteria is set by the regulator. It's not the College of Law that set the criteria. My suggestion would be to book an appointment with our student services, and you can have a one-on-one session and they'll be able to go through that in much greater detail. It would really depend on what work you did, whether it was legal in nature. You might have to explain what you did so that someone would understand whether just how sort of what level of detail you went into in relation to the legal aspects to it.
There is one question, Jackie, relating to textbooks, and I'd probably just add to that. You do get textbooks, but in addition, there's online tutorials, videos, quizzes. There's an abundance of resources at your disposal, really. So it's not restricted to textbooks, paper material, reading material. There's other forms where you can learn the material and apply what you're learning. For instance, the PEXA platform, we were able to look at videos, see how it worked, and then actually take the steps of implementing practically what we had learned. So there's lots of resources at your disposal.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, where I think, what currently have any work experience? Do you think this will make undertaking PLT any harder? I don't think a lack of work experience will make the PLT harder. And it could be that you might have experience in dealing with other things anyway, that, you know, you might have other skills that you can rely on. I don't think the lack of experience, legal experience, will be difficult for your PLT at all. It's you're going to learn the skills during your PLT. Okay. Yep, the IPCs commenced after your coursework. So either the 15 weeks full-time or 30 weeks part-time. At what point do you choose your electives, ladies? Do you remember?
I think right at the start, to be honest.
Don't think I've ever been asked that question, actually, but because I always assumed it was at the start too. But when I looked at that, I thought, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just making this up. No. IPC. What else? Anything? Is there anything else that I think I've covered? Is it possible to start PLT during your last semester? Yes, you can start during your last semester, provided you've done all your Priestley 11 and only have 2 electives left. That's a requirement. Yeah, so as long as you've done that, done your Priestley 11, have 2 electives left, you can start. It is called early commencement. There are forms on our website. You need to go to the forms and download that, and it will explain what you need to do to have it approved by the regulator. I think that's almost it, ladies. I think we've covered off lots of good questions. Thank you, everybody, and thank you. Someone else is asking about, I've got a course subject of the law degree left, but it is not a Priestley 11. I'm not sure whether in some states, if it's a core subject, I mean, normally we call our course here Priestley 11, so I'm not quite sure. But what I would suggest you do is make contact with you can book in a time with our student services and ask them directly, because they will know state specific in relation to the unis, the names of the subjects, etc., things like that. So they'll have a much more detailed knowledge about whether a call or subject would still be able to, be an elective if it's not a Priestley 11.
I would say don't feel scared to reach out to the student services. They're really helpful. I mean, I had lots of questions upon applying and after even applying, and they were able to answer all of them, and they were very responsive. So if you're unsure or have any questions, just give them a call and you know, get the answers that you need.
Yeah, and you can book a one-on-one online. You can just literally, there's a button, click book an appointment. So, and that's all virtually. I mean, that's all online. Like, you don't have to come in for an appointment, is what I meant. You are speaking to someone, not a computer. Virtually, need to be specific. Someone did ask about whether IPC was online, and yes, it is. It is online. Programs fully online, and particularly at the moment, that we can guarantee. So I think we shall wrap it up there, because I'm conscious of the time. Thank you very much to Emma and Paula, my fabulous college ambassadors. I think it's wonderful insight and wonderful you to share your experience. And thank you everyone for joining us and asking such fabulous questions. People are already commenting fabulous insights. So thank you, ladies. And feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, yeah, absolutely, shoot me a question, or alternatively, just go to the website and make an appointment with Student Services. Very happy to help you. That is their job, and they will have all the state-specific knowledge for your area. I'm glad everyone enjoyed it. It's very kind. Everyone's putting all lovely comments in our chat box. Thank you very much, and everyone stay safe, and good luck to those that are in lockdown. You can do it. We've done it. You've got it. Thanks, everyone.